was all dark. Everything is difficult. My two brothers passed away during pregnancy. My birth, which was the last attempt, turned out to be quite difficult. The separation of my parents when I was just 4 years old too, and my mother's death was the worst. But that was just the beginning of the story. It was years and years inside my own cave. Since her death in the year 2008, there have been two distinct periods of seclusion. The first, living for years and years, hurt and depressed, without any family or friends, completely isolated and alone. And the second phase, which only started happening from 2020 onward. But it was a significant phase of healing from past traumas and experiencing a fatherhood that I had never imagined. Now it was a conscious isolation because I am in the process of building something significant and impactful for future generations. Only now am I finally coming out of the cave so that you don't have to spend countless years trapped in your own cave. But this first video is not an exhibition. Actually, I am planning to create a series of videos where I will expose myself and completely throw my reputation to the ground. Because if I present myself as a Superman, you will never believe that you can be healed and have a completely free life, a life where you can truly be loved and love others in return. When I moved to Michigan, I found myself living in the basement of the house with my ex-partner. Everything was going well, and we were genuinely happy. I was living with her during what felt like our best moment together. One day, I made the decision to spend some time in the middle of the night inside the bedroom closet. It was there, in that small confined space, that I had an experience I never dreamed of having. Since that day, my life started to change forever. In the link on my profile, there is another video where I explain about this. In this video, I want to take some time to talk about the opposite experience of that day, which is a slightly sadder experience. At 4 years old, something happened that I will never forget and that affected my life completely. I witnessed my father having an argument with my mother before he stormed out of the house, and that marked the beginning of a journey for two individuals. The funniest thing is that as I grew up, I found myself in situations where, subconsciously, deep down, I just wanted to be loved. When I was younger, I wanted to be a musician like my father, to sing, to get attention, and let's say, to be accepted. But I always found myself running away from situations, even without fully realizing it at the time. Have you ever found yourself in situations like where, in the end, you couldn't understand how you did things you never thought you would do, or even that you swore never to do? For example, my father went through a divorce with my mother, and I made a promise to myself that I would never do that. But what did I do? Same thing. But today, we are fine with each other. But have you ever stopped to think about how we are our experiences? Sometimes we think we know everything, but the reality is that we know almost nothing. For example, if you search the internet about people who have had near-death experiences, you will find various types of individuals sharing their personal testimonies, where they came back completely different from how they were before. And these same people are from various different religions, including Christian ones. But why? Because it's not about a law, but about a principle that is for everyone. It's about love, the kind of love that transcends and is above all law. If we are loved, we will love, but if we are hurt, unfortunately, we will hurt. Because a truly free person will never want to imprison anyone, just as a truly healed person will never want to hurt anyone. Yes, a person who hurts is already a hurt person, but a person who loves is already a loved person. Believe me, there were things that I didn't want in my life. I was even terrified of being a father. But today it's one of the things I want most in life, with the right woman, of course. Today I really want many things. I desire things that I didn't want before, precisely because I needed to be healed first. The problem is that we were taught to believe that this doesn't exist, that being healed even from a trauma is something impossible. But it is not. Our childhood, especially up to the age of 7, will greatly influence our love life, whether for better or for worse. And if it was for the worse, is there light at the end of the tunnel? The problem is that when we don't learn what we need to learn at a certain point in our lives, we will end up repeating a bad cycle over and over again, until we finally learn and experience what we needed to learn and live. For example, during my time in school, I had to repeat the same grade the following year because I didn't study at all that entire year. This cycle would have repeated for yet another year if I hadn't woken up and started studying diligently. If we don't receive love, we will live a distorted love, not just today, but tomorrow and always. This will continue until the moment that a true love happens in such a profound and transformative way that it makes us realize we never truly experienced real love until that moment. Yes, a real and healthy paternity is extremely important in a child's life, for both boys and girls. And as incredible as it may seem, the experience I had inside the closet in my bedroom was the cure for my first emotional trauma. And the funniest thing is that the second trauma healing, now related to my father, also happened in the same place. If a deep and meaningful love doesn't happen in our lives, similar to these experiences, we will always find ourselves forcing to receive a love that we didn't get in the past. Consequently, we will always be struggling with the other person to receive something that they often can't give us, because they also never received it themselves. We can't change people because we can only change ourselves. But I know that today, at the very least, I can inspire them to make a change for themselves. That's what I want for you, to show that it's possible to be healed, to show that it's possible to be loved, and consequently, to give love. This channel will be for women, where I will focus on relationships and love, as I will speak to men in another project specifically for them, explaining about business. Firstly, for women, the transformation will occur from the inside out, while for men, the change will happen from the outside in. My goal is to bring these men and women together at the right time, so that they can finally be loved and loved in a true and profound way, without any traumas, without any emotional pain, loving genuinely and sincerely. So ladies, click on the link in my profile to understand how the experience that happened in 2020, what I lived through, and how I not only learned, but experienced and continue to experience in practice. A paternal love that I never dreamed of experiencing, without being fake, without forcing myself, just being myself in a real and true way.